Hello, guys. If you're watching this, you probably finished already the first section of the assignment that you were supposed to be doing on Tuesday. So now, what are we going to be talking about? Last video we talked about absolute value equation. That's all we did, and that's what we covered. This time, we're actually going to be covering or and n absolute value equations. So let's say you get something like this. I'm going right into it just because I'm trying to make the videos quick for you guys, so you don't have to spend so much time watching it. So let's say we get x, this is going to be your entire equation, and then you're going to get a number right after it. That's how I'm going to set up the problems for you guys. So you're going to get this type of problem in your assignment. And now you're going to have to figure out what kind of problem do I got? How am I going to figure out, like, what am I supposed to do? So the big thing whenever it comes to this, you're going to have to look at your inequality and what kind of inequality you have. If you have your equation like I'm showing right here, and you have a number like this, and the inequality is going to be greater than, you're going to have what's called an or absolute value problem. Just like we did before, we're going to have to, just like we did with compound inequalities, you're going to have to graph absolute value inequalities. They just work hand in hand. Whenever we were working with or problems, if you guys remember correctly, we have, whenever we graph them, because we're going to have to graph this ones too and write the interval notation for them as well, they were looking away from each other, and it's going to be exactly the same thing whenever we're working with absolute value inequalities. Whenever you get an or problem like this one right here, your your graph is going to look just like that. Look at that little happy face. Oh my god. Okay, let me erase that. That's going to be for your or. This time I'm actually going to do something different. Last time I did greater than, this time we're going to do less than 4. Whenever you get a problem like that, whenever you have, again, your equation like that and maybe a number like this right here, and right in between it's going to be a less than, then you're going to have what is called an and problem. Meaning that whenever you graph this absolute value inequality, you're going to have 2 points. And what the 2 points are going to do, they're going to be connecting right in the center. Make sure you always write your answer like this. I saw a lot of people doing this on your assignments, and that is wrong. The line does not continue, the line stops at your endpoint. So whatever 2 points you got on your end problems, make sure you stop your line right there. I'm going to demonstrate. So your line's going to stop right there. Okay, I'm trying to erase this one. Your line's going to stop right there. And that's going to be it. That's all you have to worry about. I'm actually going to give you a problem right out of the bat. So let's say we have x plus 3 is greater than 4. Like we mentioned before, this is going to be an or type of problem. So whenever I graph it, I'm going to have my 2 points facing away from each other. It is important that I note this, and you also, it is important that you note this because it's going to make it a lot easier for you to see if you got your answer wrong, or if you graphed it wrong, or if you did your intervals incorrectly, because we already know how it looks. So next thing I'm actually going to do, I'm going to try and solve for this. Just like we did before with the regular equal absolute value equations, we're going to have to write 2 different equations. My first equation is going to be looking exactly the same. So I'm going to have x plus 3 is greater than 4. The second equation is going to change a little bit. It's going to have the same stuff from the absolute value. The absolute value stuff stays the same. The only thing that changes is the other 2 things that's included into the equation. I'm going to have to change my inequality sign and also change the sign of the number to a negative. You're always going to do this. If you have a negative number over here, then you're going to have to do plus for the other one. But I'm not sure if I'm going to do that yet, but just make sure you keep that in mind. Whatever value you have in front of the number, you're going to have to do the opposite for your second equation. Now that I have these 2 equations here, we're just going to have to solve for x. And basically, every time we solve for inequalities, it's always the same thing. You figure out your inequality, you break it down, and once you break it down, you just have to solve for it. So on this side, we're going to have x is greater than 1. On the other side, we're going to have x is less than negative 7. And that's going to be your two answers. I have my two values on top. Make sure you always write them down, or you can always circle them, just to make it easier for me, just whenever I'm grading your papers. Now, I'm going to graph this. I'm going to put my zero in the center. Whenever you're doing your line graphs, you don't have to get very specific. You don't have to put like 20 different lines. As long as you show me your three main points, so meaning your 1, your negative 7, and your 0, I'm okay with that. I don't need any more lines on it. As long as I can tell like where you're going and what you're doing, that should be good. So I'm going to put a 1, and also I'm going to put a negative 7 right here. I'm going to put open circles on top of my two values because none of them have an equal sign underneath. So that's why we're going to have open circles for this. Okay, right here is saying that x is greater than 1, meaning that my line's actually going to go to positive infinity. Now it's also saying that x is less than negative 7, so I'm going to start from negative 7 going all the way back to negative infinity. Once I have those two things set, I can actually do my interval notation. I'm going to put parentheses for my infinities. They always go in parentheses, just remember. Then I'm going to put my negative 7 because it goes from negative infinity to 7. That's my first interval. And I'm going to put parentheses as well because we have open circles. I'm going to put the letter U. Don't forget to put the letter U because that stands for OR. I have two different interval notations I need to write, and I need to write that U so I can represent each one. So for the other one, I'm going to do 1, still parentheses, then it's going to go to infinity. And just like that, that's going to be my full answer for the entire problem. Same thing that we've been doing since last week. We're doing exactly the same thing. It's not very difficult, it's straightforward. As long as you understand how to separate at the beginning, you should be good just to do everything else. Now I'm going to erase this. I'm going to do the opposite of that problem. I'm going to have x plus 3 is the absolute value of x plus 3 is less than 4. This is going to be an end problem, like I mentioned before, and I'll demonstrate. You're going to have to solve this, so we're going to have to write both equations. So x plus 3 is less than 4. First one, we write exactly what we got. Second one, we write everything that's inside of the absolute value like it is. Then we're going to change the sign and change the sign of the number that we have in the front. We're going to solve for x on both sides. So we're going to have x is less than 1. And then we have x is greater than negative 7. Those are the two values that we're going to get. I'm going to graph it. And again, put my 0 in the center. I'm going to put my 1 and my negative 7. Both of them are going to be open circles. If I start from 1, it's saying that my x is going to be less than, so I'm going to go this way. Over here, if I start with negative 7, it's saying that x is going to be greater than, so I'm going to go the opposite way. Gotta connect them on the center. Make sure you keep it just like that. That's going to be your answer. That's how I want it to look. Now, just to finish this entire problem, we can move on. We're gonna write our interval notation. I'm gonna put parentheses for my negative 7 because it has an open circle, and also I'm gonna put a 1 for my 1. I put parentheses at both of them because none of them have an equal sign below the inequality. Now that we have all this set, all this done, now we're done with the problem.